So many real estate investors are actually missing the opportunity to turn their primary residence into a money-making machine.
Today, we're interviewing Pam Holt. She's going to break down how you can convert your primary house into a cash flow property. We're going to go down to who you need to serve and how you can travel while others are paying for your trip. So Pam, today we're talking about how to quote unquote convert your residential into a cash flow machine. Before I do that, do you feel uncomfortable having people stay at your house?
That's a great question. Initially, I was mortified. I was not on board with it. It's my family home. I live there with my kids and my dog. And so my dad lived with us. I was, like most people, probably, apprehensive. But now, many, many years later, I wouldn't live any other way. It's the best lifestyle. I don't want to call it a hack because I don't know if it's a hack or just a strategy. And I wouldn't go back.
When I did that in, I think 2011, right? I was like, oh my gosh, no, somebody's going to sleep in my bed or use my sheets and things like that. Well, when you see the cash flow at the end of the month, you can buy new sheets. You can buy whatever you want, right? You can buy a new bed set if you want to. Can we dig a little bit about, I think that sometimes people get hung up on that part and forget that it can be adjusted. So what are the changes that you have done? Do you have locks in certain areas? What are the things that you have done to adapt your residential house, primary residence to receive guests?
It's funny because people are real hung up on the strangers in my bed thing. But they never think about that, or they don't think as much about it when they go to a hotel where there are hundreds of people sleeping in that bed using those sheets. That they don't make that, connection. And so, I tell people, like you're saying, not only can you buy new sheets, you can buy a whole new bed every time you do this if you do it right. So the things that I've done in my home, when I first started, I did pare down what I have in my home. So anything that I was going to really be heartbroken over losing or somehow getting damaged, which I have to say, turns out to not be that much stuff. There were a couple of things that were my dad's. And after that, everything that I hold precious are memories that I've had with my family. So I take those all over the place with me. So I did remove like important papers like tax returns that if you still, have those printed, that kind of thing you might want to take out of the home or secure. A lot of people do an owner's closet. I haven't. I've just chosen to declutter. It's really a fantastic exercise in decluttering your home, which probably a lot of us need to do anyway. So, I've taken out a lot of just the extra stuff that I had for no apparent reason. And it gives guests, I think, the feeling that it's not my house. They're not intruding. It's a home where people actually live, but they can also see themselves there. They can be comfortable. They're not pushing my stuff to the side so they can, spread out a little bit.
Love that, Pam. I'm curious because now, again, it all comes back to me, Pam. I'm like, ooh, I have some ideas I've been wanting to do this with my home, not the whole year, but I'm like, I have some ideas brewing. So these are just selfish questions I'm going to ask you, but let's take a step back. The question is, someone listening to this has their primary residence. What are some questions they do have to ask to say, is this even an opportunity? Obviously, they can go on Airbnb, start to see what's happening, but there's a cost and a benefit, right? I'm not going to do this if I'm going to make $100 or $200. I'm going to do it if there's a significant upside, if you will. And I think a lot of the women listening would do that because it's lifestyle. It's not just money. So what are those first few things they really need to look at from analyzing primary residences to see if this is even an option?
The first thing you have to do is make sure that it's legal. There are a lot of restrictions, even in a single family home, which I have. I've got zoning to consider. And you may have a neighborhood association that has some restrictions, or you may have super fussy neighbors who, you don't want to offend, even though it's your house and you get to do what you want. You still have to take those kinds of things into consideration. So once you get all of those yeses, then it's time to kind of think about, what does the market look like for your kind of space? Now, it's interesting because the market in my area, they're a sprinkling of short-term rental scenarios, but they don't have the kind of dwelling that I have. So they're more townhomes, they're more condos. I have a freestanding single family home. So when you go to make some comparisons, you've got to make sure it's just like looking at comparables, when you're going to go sell your home. You've got to compare apples to apples. So you can't compare what you might earn in a one bedroom, to what someone in a single family, 5-bedroom home has to offer. So make sure you're making some intelligent decisions and really assumptions about what's out there and what is going to be your competition.
So Pam, you mentioned that you travel a lot with your daughter, and the guests that stay on your house, they pay for your lifestyle, right? That's wonderful. For the women, what questions they need to ask themselves first to see, would I be able to fit this, not mold, but those factors that are like, listen, if you are a germophobic, you're not going to be able to do it. If you have a baby or whatever that, do you have a quote unquote checklist for one to do for her to see, okay, is that a yes or a no for me, to see if I will be able to handle it and enjoy the upside of it?
It's an absolutely personal decision. If I had toddlers, I would have to think it through because it's a level of disruption no matter what. And you have to weigh, whether this interruption in our regular lifestyle is worth this potentially fabulous, free lifestyle that we could have if we did this. And so I talk to my kids, I'm a single mom. And so, with 2 private school tuitions. And so we didn't do a whole lot of international travel. Before I started hosting, we did some domestic stuff, but I was mostly paying mortgages and tuitions and saving for future tuitions. Once I started hosting, it freed me up then to have the flexibility to do some other things. So now when we travel internationally, and we do, I say yes to everything. We do all the tours. We stay in all the best hotels. We ball out because in my mind, these are not resources that I have allocated to, necessities. This is kind of extra money in my mind. And, but it's not just the travel. I bought a new roof and I bought a new hot water heater and a new furnace. And so I have, improved the value of my home by making these improvements and also by the natural upkeep that I have to have in my house when I welcome guests. Because I'm really particular anyway, but when I know I'm hosting guests, the whole germaphobe thing, that works for you when you are hosting.
Did you, when you were embarking on this and kind of asking yourself these questions and analyzing the property, did you kind of embark on like, what are the ideal guests for this, for my house, where it's located and all those sort of things? Like, the avatar, right? The ideal avatar. What did that process look like for you? And who are the types of people renting from your house? And does it obviously vary from market to market depending on where your house is located?
Yeah, it does. And I'm laughing because, I've been in real estate for almost 40 years. I know about the guest avatar. I know, what the client should look like, but I got it wrong. I was so wrong about my house. I thought I live a block from Lake Michigan. So I thought that, families are going to come here and they're going to want to go to the beach. And so I've got, the blow up toys and the chairs and the sunscreen and all that. And it didn't occur to me until several guests in that no one comes to Chicago to go to the beach. We're not a beach town. That's not why people come here. My real guest avatar are people, colleagues, professionals who come to town to go to the convention center that's walking distance from my home. They're business travelers. And because I've never, I live right here, I've never come to town to go to a conference or trade show there. I never thought about it. I didn't think about it. And the beauty of that is that those folks come with corporate money. And so, we're not haggling about the price. In fact, my price tripled from where it is now to where I started because I was marketing to the wrong people. I thought the wrong people were coming. And so I didn't think families were going to want to pay $1,500 a night, but unrelated colleagues who get to stay in one space instead of 4 hotel rooms, think it's a bargain.
I want to dig into that a little bit because I think that's where the key is for us to really convert our residential into a cash flow machine. You got to understand your avatar or your guest, right? Who is really coming. So let's talk a little bit about that. Besides you understanding that who was booking was more corporate, right? What are the changes that you made in your website in terms of pictures and the copy that you wrote? Can you tell us more about that? Because I think that a lot of people are thinking now, wait a minute, should I look what I wrote and how I am positioning myself? Because I might be attracting the wrong people and missing opportunity here. Because as you were saying, for corporate, that's a bargain.
Yes. I got rid of all the blow up toys and the, sunscreen. And I brought in, honestly, I brought in pizza cutters and beer mugs. And because once the folks who are at the conference get back at the end of the day, they want to gather, they want to have a few drinks, they want to cook a frozen pizza if they're not going out, and they just kind of want to chill. So yes, I changed my copy. I completely rewrote it, everything from the headline to the description to the photos. I didn't show photos of the beach anymore. I showed photos of the conference center, the McCormick place. I put in details about how long it takes you to walk there. How quickly can you get an Uber or a Divvy bike? How that's the rental bike in our area. I tweaked it. So I started speaking to who is actually coming. And it made a huge difference because I tell them in my headline, coming for the conference, stay here.
Right. And did you change your pricing based on the schedule of the conferences too, or?
Well, in Chicago, the conference season is April to November because no one wants to come to Chicago in January and get, snowed or iced in. So it was kind of a natural fit with my daughter's school schedule because I can only host when my daughter's out of school. So Mayish to sometimes in October, that's our season and that's the conference season. And when I do pick up, sometimes I'll pick up a holiday rental every now and then. I also pick up rentals. This is kind of my secondary avatar in May and June because I get graduations. I'm located near several different universities. And so I get folks coming in when they're dropping their kids off at college and when they're graduating. The whole family comes in, they can gather in one space. They're not in a hotel. It's more comfortable. So that's my secondary avatar. And I have a space in my description where I speak to them. Sometimes I'll rotate out the description when I get to the spring bookings. And I look specifically for those weddings and graduations in May and June.
How far has your property from like downtown Chicago where the convention center is, the colleges? Like what's the distance?
The conference center is walking distance. So it's less than a mile. There are 5 major hospitals that are 6 or 7 minute drive from me.
It's all at the center.
I'm pretty well situated. And sometimes I get families who have a loved one who's undergoing a medical procedure. And so the family wants to be nearby. Sometimes the patient can't travel right after the procedure. So I've had some extended stays, some month-long stays where people are there with the family. The loved one comes home to my home instead of hopping on a plane. And so that works also. So, you have to kind of consider where you are and what makes sense in terms of who you're going to attract. And then you have to go out and find them. figured out, why are you there? Why do you live where you live? Is it close to the airport? Is it close to the schools?
Great insight. So Pam, people teach us, right? People are teachers for us. So which guest has taught you the most in terms of whether you have to have better policies, procedures, increase money? But like, I'd love to hear your biggest kind of lesson from one of the guests.
All right, Pam, break it down. What did they do to you?
Okay, so this was very early on in my hosting career, and I really appreciated this, but it kind of hurt my feelings, I have to say. I had one of my first guests was a host, and had been a host for a long time. And she came in and she was like, you don't have enough towels, and you didn't do this, and I wanted this kind of coffee pot. And I was like, oh, but you know what? She was right. She was right. And I hurried out and I bought some more towels and I got another coffee pot. And, I had my tail between my legs, but she was right. And when I, stopped sniffling, I did it. And she gave me a good review. It was just hard.
I thought it would be much worse than that, but that's good. That's good that it was just manageable, right? When people think about the cash flow of a short-term rental based on renting your own primary versus a long-term rental, can you share a little bit, considering you know your market very well, if we were to compare, where are we with pricing?
It's going to vary like everything else, right? But I will tell you with my personal pricing, because when I started hosting, I kind of did it on a whim. I had no idea it was going to work. I was like, a friend of mine said, why don't you try it? I was going out of town anyway. And I was like, who wants to come and stay in my house? I have kids and a dog. Why would anybody want to stay here? So I started off really low. I started off at $500 a night, which for my area and the hotel cost in my community was low. I mean, you're getting 4 rooms and 4 baths. So if you were to rent that in a hotel, you're several times more than what I was charging. And then as I built confidence and I started to understand who my avatar was, and I started to collect amenities that would appeal more to them, right now I'm triple that. So it took me a minute because I didn't have the confidence. I just couldn't imagine someone would pay me that kind of money to stay in my regular house. I don't live on a beach. I don't have a golf course in the background. I have a house, an urban house in Chicago.
And what's your average? I know you rent, it could be per month or per year, per season. What is your average cash flow?
You know what? It kind of varies. The summer, of course, is like the heart of the summer. July is probably my biggest month. I can be booked, for most of the month. I can have move-ins, move-outs the same day. So I can do easily $20,000 in that month. But as we get closer to when school is starting, so like September, the latter part of September, when I have to actually vacate while my daughter's in school, I'm pickier about the rentals that I'll take. I won't take, something less than 4 or 5 days because I've got to either go to a hotel, which sometimes we do, and that's just fun. I've got to stay with a relative, or I've got to get out. And so it's got to be worthwhile for me to get out. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not.
It's great. Thank you so much, Pam. Where can all the listeners learn more about you?
You can reach me at pamholt.com. I'm there, and I love sharing about hosting in your primary residence.
Awesome. All this information you guys can find on our show notes. Pam, thanks so much for being here and sharing your wisdom with our audience. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.